Taylor, thanks so much for joining us today. You have responsibility for the modernization efforts across enforcement systems. Do you have a particular success story that you could share with the audience?
Mark, thanks for the question. I'm always impressed with our ability to pivot to the changing border security environment. Whenever conditions change, it requires a technology change. And it requires technology change in the enforcement systems lifecycle, which my division manages. That involves planning operations, detecting activity, classifying that activity, and then analyzing the information. And the most recent example would be within the COVID-19 crisis. It limited the capacity in the stations for our field agents. And so we had to push technology to help to meet those, both in the planning and in the classification realms. For planning, we pushed out some software apps to help with messaging so that agents would not have to congregate within stations. For processing, for classification, we pushed out the ability for agents to do the processing actions that they needed to do outside of stations. And COVID-19 hit very fast, but we were able to respond and push this out to meet the demands of that current challenge.
Could you tell us a little bit more about the longer term vision for digital transformation, particularly out in the field?
Yeah, thanks, Mark. I think there's two parts to this. One, I talked about it in the previous question, and that's the ability to provide flexible solutions to a border security environment that is constantly changing. And this can have a couple components within it. Part of it is mobile devices. We don't want agents tethered to their stations. And there's several benefits that can come out from this. It will save time. The border is expansive. And so to give agents the ability to do their actions and not have to return to a station will save significant time in some of these expansive regions that the agents work. And data accuracy, to give agents the ability to record the activity that they're seeing at the point at which they're seeing the activity will improve the data accuracy and how we're collecting it. There's also a software architecture piece to this. Reusable microservices and technologies such as this so that we can better integrate for unforeseen changing conditions. And I'll give an example. We're currently undergoing a large-scale modernization across the enforcement systems portfolio. The Border Enforcement Coordination Network, or Beacon for short, is a large modernization that we're undertaking. And we're using some of this architecture in the way that we're doing it so that we can adapt more readily as conditions change on the border. The second piece I would say to the long-term vision is how do we take agent insights and convert them into agent solutions at scale in changing conditions. We want to be able to leverage digital tools to consume those insights from the 20,000 plus users that we have in the field with different needs that change. The needs on the southern border are not the same as the needs on the northern border, are not the same as the needs on the coastal borders. And as the conditions on the borders change, these needs change as well. How do we receive all of those inputs from agents and how we're building and pushing out our technology solutions? For our Beacon modernization program, we're looking to do this. We're pushing out a new platform currently to better streamline how we're having requirements come into us at headquarters and how we're routing them for determination and assessment. We're using other platforms to receive the ideas for proposals and concepts that we have. Some of the initial functionality that we want to push out for the Beacon platform, we want that initial agent input, and we're using technology at scale to receive that so that we can build a solution that accounts for all of the needs of our end users.
So it sounds like you've got an important mission ahead of you. You've got, an interesting technology challenge. There are a number of technology partners that are viewing this session. What is it that we at ServiceNow and other technology partners, what is it that we can do to help deliver your vision?
We need solutions that offer flexibility with the ability to maintain scalability. And so I've described sort of the changing current environment. We have a very large user base spread out across the country, but the border is not the same. As I mentioned previously, the northern border is vastly different than the southern border, vastly different than the coastal border. And even within those subregions, there are enormous differences. And so understanding that it is not the same across is important. And it's not static. The conditions at the border change constantly based on operational changes, based on policy changes. And so we need solutions from the vendor community that give us that inherent flexibility that we can adjust as needed when the conditions change.
Let me ask you a slightly different question. For others within the federal government who are running similar roles to yours, right? Running modernization programs, technology modernization programs. Are there any sort of lessons learned, best practices, or tips that you might give those individuals?
The biggest challenge we're having, Mark, with planning our modernization and how we've gotten to this point is managing the requirements for the current systems. So we cannot stop the requirements for the systems we have in the field. These are 24/7 systems that are out there. And so we need to continue to meet those changing requirements that I've discussed previously while we're building a new platform. It's almost like flying two planes at the same time. And so it took us a while, a lot of planning on the front end to ensure that we had the stability to manage the systems that exist in the field, that we had the ability to adapt to them while we're building the new modernization platform without dropping anything on this side. That took a lot. That took a lot to ensure that we had the staffing and the resourcing and the plan to fly two of these planes at the same time.
That makes a ton of sense. So, Taylor, again, I want to thank you for your time. I want to thank you for your insight today. We really do appreciate it.
Thank you, Mark.